Good morning. This is lecture 21. I hope to cover basics, metric concepts with this lecture. So this will be the 5th lecture on this topic. This is covered in the 2nd and 3rd chapters of the book on advanced structural analysis. There was one topic which we didn't cover in the last session, that is equivalent joint loads. You are already familiar with the need for this. You need this whenever you have intermediate loads. We have used it when we did slope deflection method and moment distribution method. So when intermediate loads act in between the joints of a structure, they can be converted to equivalent joint loads to facilitate formulating the load vector in matrix analysis. That is because we want to limit the degrees of freedom. So you have two types of problems, one where you have direct actions which are distributed and you can find the fixed end forces. You have done it for beams, but it is possible you might get them in axial elements. For example, a column with self weight, that is a distributed load. We will see how to handle that. So this notation F I star F, what does it represent in the stiffness method? In the ith element, the fixed end forces, that small subscript f stands for fixed end forces along the local axis. Okay, so it is a local axis system, right? You can get fixed end forces from another problem, indirect loading. Take a truss. When you let us say you have a lack of fit problem in the truss, or let us say you have a temperature change problem, okay, that is indirect loading. How will you handle that? How will you convert it to fixed end forces? How will you find that tension? Where is it? Let us say it is statically determinate. Then why are you taking that as a fixed end force? Elongation will not give you the fixed end force, it will give you elongation. Say L alpha delta T is the free elongation you get in a bar. From that, where is the tension? There is no tension in the bar. Please understand the physics. I have a statically determinate truss, let us say. I am doing by the stiffness method. I heat all the bars, let them all get heated. Where do I get tension?
No
tension. Fixed end force?
No tension.
No, there is. You are right, but you are not able to give the physics behind the problem. What you said is right. You might get tension or you might get compression, that is a different issue, but you will get an axial force when? In which structure will you get an axial force?
Sir, if it is determinate, we can move the structure at
we are doing by the stiffness method, that is what you have learned till now, right? In the stiffness method, how do you handle environmental changes in bars in a truss, for example? It is a little tricky, we will study it in detail in the next module, but I will give you a clue. All structures are kinematically indeterminate, even if they are statically determinate. So we are always working as our base the primary structure. So in the primary structure, no movements are allowed at the joints, you have to arrest all the joints. Now you try heating those bars, you will get compression in those members, or you cool those bars, you get tension in those members. So in the primary structure you get them and they get passed on to the joints. That is how you handle it in stiffness method, it is very interesting. So do you agree I can write down a set of initial displacements, either contraction or elongation in a truss, and if I just multiply it with the element stiffness of that, I get the fixed end forces. We will see this in detail later. Okay, so you have got the local fixed end force vectors for all the elements, either caused by direct actions, that is intermediate loads, or by indirect loading. What do you do next in this conventional stiffness method which we studied? You have to convert these to the global axis system. How do you do that? What is the transformation matrix you will use? Will you use Ti? Will you pre-multiply by Ti? not Ti, then what? Don't mix up problems. We are doing conventional stiffness method. Tf comes in flexibility method, so it's easy to get confused. You remember that Ti enables you a transformation from the global axis system to the local axis system, both for forces and displacements. Now we are trying to switch from the local to the global. So what's the transformation you need to do? There you are, Ti transpose, that's all you have to do. So add up all your element fixed end forces, apply the transformation in the reverse direction so that you go back to the fixed end forces, and then you can generate the fixed end force vector for the structure by assembling it in some appropriate way, and you will realize you will get some fixed end forces coming to the active degrees of freedom, they are going to be your loads, and some will pile on to the restrained degrees of freedom, they will add on to your reactions. So you pick up your fixed equivalent joint loads from FFA, A is at the active degree of freedom, and then you have to apply it in the opposite direction, you remember in the classical stiffness method, and that is your equivalent joint loads. I am just brushing up what we have done earlier, but we are doing it in a matrix format. So the basis for equivalence is that the equivalent joint loads should generate the same conjugate displacement at the joints on which they act as the original intermediate loads at these locations. Remember, I have shown you this earlier, you have a original structure and you have first a restrained structure where you arrest all the degrees of freedom, and then you have a structure in which you apply nodal loads. The joint displacements here are 0 because you arrested everything. The joint displacement in the original structure are non-zero. So obviously if you do superposition, the equivalent joint loads should act in such a way that you end up getting the same unknown displacements in the original structure at the joints, not in between, and that is the basic principle of equivalent joint loads. If the displacement at these joints are arrested in the original structure, then the resultant fixed end forces generated at the artificial restraints when applied in an opposite direction correspond to the equivalent joint loads. You have to add up these equivalent joint loads with whatever additional joint loads that you may get. Okay, now we move on. We have had a quick look at the conventional stiffness method. There is no way you fully understand it unless you apply it to problems, but the idea here is to just lay the road map. Now we are going to look at the reduced element stiffness method. We will see the flexibility method after that. They are similar, so it is easy to see them. If you recall, we know why we can take advantage of this reduced element stiffness method, because the rank of the element, the conventional stiffness matrix at the element level is less than full. So you can reduce it to the minimum, to full rank, and we have already discussed 3 types of elements. We will see other types later, but this is elementary. So we looked at the truss element, you have only 1 degree of freedom reduced. We looked at the beam element, 2 degrees of freedom. We have chosen, just for convenience, a simply supported arrangement. You can very well choose a cantilever, okay, but let us not get confused, we will take one at a time. And the plane frame element is a combination of the truss element and the beam element, so you got 3 degrees of freedom, and 3 displacements correspond to 1 translation and 2 end rotations. In terms of forces, 1 axial force and 2 end moments. Now you may ask, what about the shear forces and all that is statically determined. Once you have got the end moments, you have got the shear forces, right, okay. So we also looked at this, recall, we talked about the displacement transformation matrix, and we derived this from first principles using what we call a kinematic approach. I will show you, you can also get the same matrix, the TDI matrix, from a static approach using this principle called the contra gradient principle, which we are now going to look at. But before that, let us just do an application of the TDI matrix. Let us take this frame which we have been playing along all this while. You have got this 3 element frame, the primary structures are arrested. We want to, if you push D1 equal to 1, and if you had to generate the T2dA matrix, which I put it with a circle here, how will you get this matrix? What will be the size of this matrix? I am just taking the second element which I have shown here. The second element has 3 degrees of freedom, 1, 2 and 3. When I apply a unit displacement to the structure here, arresting all the other displacements, this will affect elements 1 and 2. Just see the effect in element 2. How will you convert it to, what effect will it cause? It will cause a compression in that member, agreed? And remember, you have only 1 degree of freedom in that element in the reduced format, and that displacement is what? We said it is an elongation, right? So we want to get that quantity. What will it be? It will be, it is a component of 1, you know, won't it be cos theta? Will it be plus cos theta or minus cos theta? Minus cos theta, right? And will you get, so we have got this value, di1 star is going to be minus cos theta. What about di2 star for element 2? Will you get any moments? Will you get any rotations? No, because you have arrested that here. You won't get anything there. Will you get any rotation here? No. Okay, you will understand when I show you the matrix, but at least tell me the size of the matrix. What is the size of T2dA matrix? You remember there are how many degrees of freedom here in this problem? There were 8 active degrees of freedom and 4 restrained degrees of freedom, right? So the matrix will look like this. Okay, I am just pulling out the T2dA matrix here with the circle. For this element, if I had to generate the matrix, the first column, this is a 3 by 8 matrix. First column is what I write down when I apply D1 equal to 1 to the structure. Do you agree? When I apply D1 equal to 1 to the structure, I get just a contraction in that element, and so corresponding to this first degree of freedom, I get minus cos theta of that element 2. I do not get a rotation at the left end, I do not get a rotation at the right end. So do you understand the physical meaning of first row, second row, third row? The first row refers to what I get here when I keep applying a unit displacement to the structure. The second row refers to the rotation here, the third row refers to the rotation here. Likewise, I can move ahead and go to applying D2 equal to 1, which means I now lift up this joint and keep everything else restrained. When I lift up this joint, what do you think I will get? I will get minus sine theta. Do you understand or you do not? You understand. Do not worry, we will come back to this later.
Why is the minus sign?
Because you will get a contraction, the length of the material. Well, that question you should have asked here. Why did you get a minus sign here? See, when I pushed this horizontally here, I got a contraction, so this was a minus sign. When I lifted it up, then also the length reduced, I got a minus sign. But when I pull the right end here, right, I get a plus sign because I get, you can see the red line has elongated, and when I lift it up the right end, I get elongation, right. So what I have written here, the displacement transformation matrix gives me the element elongations caused by a unit movement, unit translation at the left end and the right end, keeping all the other degrees of freedom clear. So what I get minus whenever I push the left end, and I get plus when I push the right. Is that clear now? Okay. I do not seem to see a yes or no.
Yes.
Give me a resounding yes. Okay, if you understood, but do not worry, with time you will understand. So broadly you get the picture hang of this matrix. Now this, when you do reduced element stiffness method and you do flexibility method, you can't program it as blindly as you could the conventional stiffness method, because you are trying to take a shortcut, you have to apply your brain a little bit, especially in generating the fixed end force vector, which we will see later. So you can do this. Now let us look at the contra gradient principle. I have shown this earlier, but here at the lower level I have put the element level forces, the combined element force vector F star, which actually refers in a case of a truss to all the axial forces in the truss, the combined element displacement vector D star, which are the bar elongations in the truss, the structure level displacement vector, which are the joint displacement in the truss, and the structure level force vector F. Okay, F, I can include both the active degrees of freedom and the restrained degrees of freedom, or I can limit to the active degrees of freedom. Now the transformation we did was, if I know the joint displacements, then I get the individual member deformations, in this case the bar elongations, by applying the TD matrix as a transformation. I just demonstrated that, and this actually gives a compatibility relationship between the structure joint displacement and the member bar elongations, right. Likewise, there is a set of equilibrium relationships which relate F star with F, and do you think this relationship is linked to the TD matrix? Can we prove that relationship? How do you prove that relationship? This is a very important concept. How do you relate the element level forces to the structure level forces in the way we related the element level displacements to the structure level displacements? What principle will you use?
Principle of superposition. Like
whenever you are doing transformations of matrices, you are using principle of superposition, whether you like it or not. That is how it is a linear combination of vectors. So that is implicit. What is the answer you gave? But you have to talk matrix language. You are just saying what I wrote here. I am asking you, how do I build a relationship between this and this? There you are, it has come out. Using this. So you use the principle of virtual work. You realize work is that principle which ties together the force field with the displacement field. So do you realize the principle of virtual work says the total external virtual work product is equal to the total internal virtual work product. Now here all the forces are real, all the displacements are real, but the product is still virtual because I am not applying any factor half. Okay, I am just taking the forces. So do you agree to this equation that I have written here, that if I take the structure level forces and find the total work done, it is simply given by either D transpose F or F transpose D. Similarly, if I take the internal virtual work, I can write either D star transpose T F star or F star transpose D. Now we will use the other one in the flexibility method. Now how to proceed after this, because you will end up with a beautiful equation. What can we now substitute in this equation? Instead of
star.
No, that is not what you need. You have to bring in TD into the picture, man. Huh? You replace D star with TD into D. That's how you bring it in the picture, and you have to take the transpose of it. Now A, B, the whole transpose is B transpose A transpose, right? So don't you get this nice relationship? Then what? What does this establish? Then you keep your eyes open and compare the left hand side with the right hand side, and then you arrive at a simple equation. F is equal to. So what does this mean? This means that is your relationship. That is a powerful relationship. That means once you have established the TD matrix, you are actually tying, you are also linking simultaneously a relationship between the force vector at the element level to the joint forces. In terms of a truss, what we are saying is, if you know the bar forces in the truss, then the joint loads that could have caused those forces are related in this way, but it is not a very useful relationship, in the sense the normal problem is you have unknown bar forces and you have known loads. Okay, the real problem is that, but this is useful in building up the force transformation matrix. Now because you are doing it in the reverse direction, this was the normal direction for TD, you are moving in the contra direction, the slope is moving in the reverse direction, hence the word contra gradient. Gradient is the slope, normally things flow downhill, but here it is going to flow uphill when you are dealing with the force field. Okay, and yeah. Sorry?
Similarly, you can write F star equal to TD into.
You can't do all that.
But TD is not argument.
You can't do all that. See, in the stiffness method, TD is unique. From first principle we derived it. What you are saying is something we will do in the flexibility method. There we will bring the TF matrix. Right now, do not jump ahead because you will make mistakes, do it slowly. Is this proof crystal clear? It is a simple proof, a beautiful proof. Let us apply this proof. But before that, a statement. The contra gradient principle as applied in the stiffness method of analysis states that if in any structure a displacement transformation matrix TD can be established based on compatibility conditions to transform the nodal displacements in the structure to member displacements d star equal to TD d, then the transpose of TD serves to transform the member forces to the nodal forces acting in the form of loads and reactions on the structure. F is equal to TD transpose F star. Okay. Remember this problem? We wanted to find the TD matrix. Well, if you use statics, you can find the TD transpose matrix. Then you take the transpose of the transpose, you will get the TD matrix, right? So now if I look at this relationship, F star, in this you have four components here, right? Fi1, Fi2, Fi3, Fi4. This force, the internal force here is actually Ni, that is what I call F, that is what the element force there is, right? Actually this is written the wrong way. Yeah, the Fi is 4 by 1, right? Then what you get here, these are the 4 vectors that I need. That means if I take this structure and imagine I have a bar and I have a unit axial force in that bar, what are the load components that I get at the two ends of the bar which will satisfy equilibrium? That is a static approach. Can you tell me what these 4 components are? What should this force be equal to? Plus or minus? Because it is axial tension. Then how will you satisfy sigma fx equals 0? What about here? This one will be plus or minus? And what will this be? Plus what? Sin theta. What will this be? There. I hope it does not take too long. So you see, you have got this, that is your TD transpose matrix. You take the transpose of that, you get TD. You see, very clever way of getting the TD matrix in the reverse direction. This is statics, previously we did kinematics. You have a choice, okay. Normally students are weak in kinematics, they love doing sigma fx equals 0, sigma fy equals 0. You can get it this way, then take the transpose, you get the TD matrix. But if you are good in geometry, you can do that. I want you to be good in both, and you can do either way you want. Is this clear? We will see examples of this in trusses later. Now you've got the stiffness matrix at the element level, you've got the TD matrix which relates the element level displacements to the structure level displacements. Our job is to find the structure stiffness matrix. Remember, we were not very comfortable with the conventional stiffness method where you have to put the linking coordinates and you have to put it in the slot and so on. Here you will have no problems because you've got this relationship, this is TD. Now you've got the same playground, everything is familiar to you, you've got a new beautiful relationship from the contract gradient principle, which is what? Which is this. Does this make sense to you? The structure level on top, the element level below, TD flowing downward for displacements, TD transpose flowing upward for forces, then take the diagonal. The diagonal just says that if you tell me what the displacements are in a truss, joint displacements are, immediately I will tell you what the bar forces are by doing this transpose, this matrix. Remember I put a K tilde to remind myself that I am dealing with a reduced stiffness matrix. So agreed. So this is the unknown bar forces are nothing but this times that. Is it clear? Then if I want to take this shortcut directly from D to F, what do you think K will be? K will be TD transpose K tilde star TD. So you will find repeatedly this kind of pattern emerging. You have to pre-multiply the stiffness matrix, whether it is the regular stiffness matrix or the conventional stiffness matrix, by the transpose of some transformation matrix, in this case TD, and also post multiply with TD. So that is what you do. When you do this, you will get the full stiffness matrix without any effort. So that is to sum up the reduced element stiffness method. We will go through the details later. It is similar to the conventional stiffness method, the steps are similar, but you will really understand this only when we do some problems. So we are now set to move on to the last topic, which is the flexibility method. The first problem you will notice the main difference between flexibility and stiffness method is you have, even at the global coordinates level, you have to be careful. Why? Because here you have a choice of redundants. Now this particular structure, is it statically indeterminate or determinate? It is determinate? Indeterminate. What is the degree of indeterminacy? 1. Which would you like to choose as a redundant? The support is not redundant, is a force. Okay, you will, so corresponding to that redundant support, you want the primary structure to be a cantilever, say that. That means you want to get rid of that roller support, right? So in terms of statics, you have to replace it with a force, right? And that is your single redundant here. So as far as your external loads are concerned, there is a one-to-one similarity between flexibility method and stiffness method. You have 8 degrees of freedom, active degrees of freedom. I have put the same numbering 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I am not showing the reactions yet. Actually flexibility method is more suited for manual analysis. So you can always get the reaction once you have got the free bodies. So for the present, let us not worry about reactions, but I will show you, you can find reactions if you really want to also. We will skip that. So what do you do? Remove it. This is your primary structure, and to complete the picture, introduce your redundant as the next coordinate. So you put the Fx, the redundant forces, here there is only 1, supposing you had 3, so you will put 9, 10, 11 as your degrees of freedom in addition to the active degrees of freedom. We will call them redundant degrees of freedom, okay. Okay, so for example, if you had this problem which I showed you earlier, then Vd is your redundant x1, and this is how you would write the force vector, right. The first part, the Fa part we have seen earlier, you are just putting F9 now. F9 is your additional unknown redundant, okay. You need to pay attention, right. So F vector is Fa Fx, D vector is dA dx. So this is the major departure from the stiffness method, because in stiffness method we had dA dr, Fa Fr. In flexibility method for statically indeterminate structures we have Fa Fx and dA dx as our force vector and displacement vector. Does this make sense to you, right? Okay. In these vectors, what is known and what is unknown? Well, Fa is known, these loads are usually given to you, Fx is unknown, this is a redundant you need to find, dA is not known and dx is known, because dx gives you your compatibility conditions, right. So what is your compatibility condition? Well, in this particular problem dx is having only one element d9 and it is 0, but supposing you had a support movement settlement, then it will not be 0, you will put the correct value. We are familiar with this, we did method of consistent deformation, so it falls into place. So far so good. Okay, next point, if you want to find support reactions you can do it, we will see it later. In the flexibility method of matrix analysis we can replace supports by appropriate rigid links. So the force in the rigid link becomes you convert the external reaction to an internal force in an imaginary rigid link. It is a little trick you can do, but it adds to your size of your matrix. You might not find it convenient to do in practice. Okay. Similarly, we can assign support displacements if required by way of initial deformations in the rigid links. Okay, we will see that later. So now we are going to look at what one of you asked, can we do this transformation. So this is our TF transformation. Remember we did TD transformation, we looked at TD transformation in the stiffness method, both the conventional stiffness method and the reduced stiffness method. Now you do not worry about TD, you look only at TF, and we are based, obviously TF must be based on equilibrium alone. So you can uniquely define TF only for a statically determinate structure, because you have a unique statically admissible solution. For a statically indeterminate structure you can't uniquely define TF, please note that. Demonstrate with an example, very familiar example. This is a plane truss, you identify the active degrees of freedom, there are only 5 of them, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have one element, remember you have done the reduced element stiffness method, the flexibility method follows the same system as the reduced element stiffness method. So what is your unknown displacement in that element? It is a bar elongation. What is the unknown force in the element? It is a bar force, tension assumed positive, elongation assumed positive. Okay, so that is your degree of freedom. We want to write down the TF matrix. We want to write down the TF matrix, which is F star is equal to TF into FA. How do you write the TF matrix? What do you need to do to write to generate the TF matrix? Apply unit load. How many of them? How many of them? You answer the question that I have raised. What is the size of the TF matrix? 5 by 5. So far so good. How do I get the first column in the TF matrix? Apply unit load where? At 1. So it is called apply F1 equal to 1. Then how do I get the second column? F2 equal to 1. So I have to apply 5 times and 1 at a time. Is it clear? Let us do one of them. So this is my force transformation matrix. 5 by 5, it turns out to be a square matrix. It is a unique matrix, it is interesting. So FA has 5 components, DA has 5 components, they refer to the joint movements, right. You know what F1 is, you know what D1 is, F2, D2, etc. This is external. What about internal? F star has also 5 because there are 5 bars, right. Now I have written here F1 star, F2 star, F3 star, but you can write if you want F1 1 star, because really your degree of freedom is 1 star. So whether I write just star here or 1 star here, in the case of a truss it does not matter, you can choose either. I will show you alternatively how you can do it. So this is nothing but the bar force, and the internal D1 star is nothing but the bar elongation. Do you understand what this means? Everything makes sense? Okay. Now we need to generate the TF matrix. So let us do that. So let us take that matrix, apply F1 equal to 1. Can we quickly analyze this? Are there any 0 bar forces here? By inspection tell me which bar force? 1 and 4, that's quite fast. Well, look at the support D, roller support. From there you can make out one of those two bar forces 0. Which is 0? 4 is 0, right. Then you go up to the joint B, which is 0? 1 is 0. Then what's the force in bar 5? 1. Is it tension or compression? It's compression, so minus 1. Then you go to joint C. What's the force in bar 3? The component, the horizontal component of the axial force in bar 3 must be equal to 1. So how much would? Plus or minus? Plus. Very good. Then the vertical component of this must be the force in bar 2. How much is that?
Minus 4 by 3.
It's all like this. You do 5 times, you can get that matrix. Okay, and some of them are really easy. That's what it looks like. Okay, so don't get scared. TF matrix is very comfortable because we were raised on statically determinate structures. That's our fodder, so it's very easy to generate this. Especially the second one, F2 equal to 1 has only one element. Okay, so you understand what TF matrix is. Good. Now let's take any element in that. Okay, that element we used to call N31. Remember small n for unit loads? N31 refers to the force in bar number 3 caused by F1 equal to 1. Remember we've used this notation earlier. It's called the force transfer coefficient. Why is it called a transfer coefficient?
Transfers that much load to that.
Yeah, it's like all these 5 bars form an organization, a partnership, and whatever money comes or goes out to that, it's an immediate transaction online. In the bank account, if some money comes in, some fraction of it goes. So that's exactly what's happening. You apply a load F1 equal to 1 on the structure. Can you see what I've done? You apply F1 equal to 1, immediately you got to transfer N31 to bar number 3. In this case 5 by 3. But don't take that analogy too far because you are actually transferring more money than that came in. Okay, right? So this is the meaning of force transfer coefficient, right? The force transformation matrix is a unique matrix satisfying static equilibrium, enabling structure level forces or loads to be transferred in inverted commas to element level forces in a given statically determinate structure. In the case of a statically indeterminate structure, remember it is not possible to define such a unique matrix because multiple statical admissible solutions are possible. So how do you handle an indeterminate structure? Primary structure is statically determinate, and apply superposition, right? That's what we did in consistent deformation method. So that's what we are going to do. So here again you have a contra gradient principle, and actually a principle which is the one that proves why you don't need to satisfy explicitly compatibility in statically determinate structures. You remember all structures have to satisfy 3 requirements. What are the 3 requirements? Equilibrium, compatibility, and force displacement relationships, which include stress strain relationships, constitutive relationships. Statically indeterminate structures, equilibrium alone cannot help you get the unknown forces. You are forced to look into the other 2. Statically determinate, you are getting away with just looking at equilibrium. The question arises, a good student should ask this question, does it mean somehow automatically compatibility is satisfied? Yes, prove it. So the contra gradient principle actually proves it. How do you prove it? We did a similar proof earlier. We did principle of virtual work. Can we do the same principle? Then we will get the same old result? No. There we proved TD transpose. Here we have to prove TF transpose. So how do you use the same principle? You flip what?
F star and D.
There we did D transpose F, now we do F transpose D. Okay. Now because we are keeping reactions out of this game, Anyway, reactions do not do any work if the supports do not move. We have Fa transpose dA, agreed, is equal to F star transpose D star, agreed. Total external virtual work product is equal to total internal virtual work product. What do you need to substitute now?
F star equal to TEF.
There, now you are good. This is simple logic. What do you end up proving? By comparing dA is TF. Fantastic. So without your knowledge, when you are satisfying equilibrium in a statically determinate structure, you are also simultaneously satisfying compatibility, provided your structure is statically determinate. Okay. The contra gradient principle as applied in the flexibility method of analysis states that if in a statically determinate structure a force transformation matrix TF can be established based on equilibrium conditions to transform the loads on the structure to the member forces, F star is equal to TF into Fa, then the transpose of TF serves to transform the member deformations to the active structure displacements, dA is equal to TF transpose D star. This implies that the same equilibrium conditions serve as compatibility conditions in a just rigid structure, with the difference that TF pertains to a transformation from the global coordinates to the local coordinates, while TF transpose pertains to a transformation in the opposite direction, in the contra direction, in the contra gradient direction, that is from local to global when you are relating displacements. That's so you see, you will never forget the contra gradient principle. It has two parts to it. One part when you find TD transpose, that is in stiffness method. The other part is when you find TF transpose. You will be very comfortable with flexibility method. Unfortunately, our focus is not the flexibility method because the computers do not do that method for reasons we will see shortly. Let us see the implication of this TF transpose method. We had done this, right? Now, what are the implications? Let us take a bar in that truss, okay, the third bar. For the fun of it, let us heat that bar, okay. How does this TF transpose matrix help us find what?
Displacement at D or so.
Displacement at C, this if I say E3 initial, that is the initial displacement. It could be a lack of fit, it could be heating that bar by say 1 mm. What do I end up finding? Let us take N31, 5 by 3. We did a bank transfer recently, right, for the forces. What is 5 by 3 going to be? Displacement, it must be a displacement. Where? At B or C? Well, what you need to do is to see. Well, all the bars will move. I have heated, compatibility will satisfy. Remember, this 5 by 3 is the force you got in bar 3 when you applied F1 equal to 1. So, when you change the length of the bar 3, you will get the displacement at 1. Where is 1? Where is F1? B. This much. So, it is fantastic. I mean, you derived from statics a matrix, you can get that matrix to get joint displacements, okay. And let us give a, so dA is TF transpose D star, let us give another demonstration of it. Same truss, now I have a lack of fit, I arbitrarily have different, it came to the site, the bars came with different lengths, that is how bad manufacturing is. So bars 1 and 2 are found to be too long by 1.5 mm, bars 3 and 4 too long by 3 mm, bar 5 too short by 1 mm, find the various joint displacements. Well, most people will have to necessarily either do this by geometry or actually do the experiment and then measure how much it moved. But if you are intelligent, if you are brilliant, you can invoke this beautiful contra gradient principle and get it in a jiffy. How do you get it in a jiffy? Well, first you have to convert these into the language of matrices. How will you write that? You have an initial displacement element level matrix which vector which you can write like that, INI short for initial. Do you agree? I put plus when I have a larger length, put minus when I have a shorter length. Does it make sense? Right? Then I invoke this powerful principle. This is my TF matrix, and I take the transpose of that matrix. I have got all the answers in one shot. If I am using MATLAB, correct. You have to agree, matrix method very powerful. If you know how to use it, when to use it, and when not to use it, when not to abuse it, when not to misuse it, and in practice the misuse and abuse is widespread. Okay. So if you compare now the two transformations, you get another interesting result for a statically determinate structure. TF transpose inverse is TDA and TDA inverse is TF transpose. So you can get a potential question in the exam where I give you one of them and ask you to figure out the other. You have to bring this in. The contra displacement matrix, that is a name I have given, okay, but it is not a very common name. You can say TF transpose matrix, which is based on a flexibility formulation for a statically determinate just rigid structure, and the active displacement matrix TDA, which is based on a reduced element stiffness formulation for the same structure, are both square matrices describing compatibility relationship between the local and global coordinates, one being the inverse of the other. Flexibility matrix definition you know, okay, just like the stiffness matrix, each element is called the flexibility coefficient. Fij is defined as the displacement di generated at the coordinate I on account of a unit load at the coordinate j, that is Fj equal to 1, with no other loads acting on the structure. In stiffness method we said the same thing and said with all other displacement arrested, then only the definition is complete. You can write it this way, okay, you can put all the elements together this way, okay, that is called the unassembled, the diagonal form, and you need to get the structures flexibility method. Now it is simple, we played this game so many times, it is not difficult. You know the element flexibility stiffness is, it is just the inverse of what we did for the reduced element stiffness matrix. And so this we know, if you expand it, it will have a diagonal form like this. Remember we did it recently, and then you can either write equations if you are fond of writing equations, or you can play this game. I suggest you write this game, it is very easy, right. First at the element level F star is, now you see the direction is moving to the right, because flexibility is always opposed to stiffness, they are two different paths. So if you know the forces, element level forces, if you multiply by the flexibility matrix you get the element level displacement, right. In a bar, if you multiply the bar force in a truss, multiply the bar force with its actual flexibility, you get the bar elongation, right. At the structure level you need to find F, relating Fa with dA. How do you get F from F star, small f? I put small f because capital F goes to force. Well, let us do it the right royal, we will play the game by its rules. So first this transformation, it flows this way and on the left side TF transpose, and contra gradient says this flows this way. If you take the diagonal it will flow this way, and if you take the shortcut it goes that way. That is your proof. TF transpose F star TF is your structure flexibility matrix. If you have got these matrices with you, you do not multiply those matrices, give the damn computer the job to do it, press the button, get your F matrix. Okay, so you have got statically indeterminate structures. Here the problem is TF cannot be uniquely defined. So what do you need to do? Primary structure. For a chosen primary structure TF is unique. So what does it mean? Each student in this class can arrive at a different TF matrix, so it is difficult for the examiner to check the results, so he has to wait for the final results to come out. But whoever does it has to follow the same path. Now I say TFA and TFR, I partition it. TFA refers to that part which is dealing with the loads on the primary structure, and TFX is that which deals with the unknown redundants, okay, and you can do it at the individual element level or you can take the combined level, right. So you can write down these equations, they are compatibility equations, we will study them in great depth. I just want to rush through it because this is just a road map, and you can write down the procedure just as we wrote the procedure earlier for the flexibility method. I want to conclude with this last slide summing up all that we have learned till now. Broadly, stiffness and flexibility method differ in some terms. What are the basic unknowns in stiffness method? Stiffness method, they are forces.
Forces.
In stiffness method the unknowns are displacement. In flexibility method the unknowns are this child's play. Okay, next one. What's the type of indeterminacy in stiffness method? Kinematic versus? Brilliant. What's the unique, do you have a unique primary structure in the stiffness method? Do you have a unique primary structure? That means will all the students in the class?
Yes.
Yes. What about the flexibility method?
No.
Well, depends. If all fools think alike, then it will be unique, but otherwise potentially it will be different, right. What about the force displacement relation format? What's the format you have in stiffness method? Yeah, but if you want to write it in one word, what's the format? It's a stiffness format and a flexibility format, come on, okay. Is the matrix that you get, the stiffness or flexibility, always well conditioned? Yes, in the stiffness method. Well, sometimes yes, so but you can't say always, right. Governing equations, compatibility in which one?
Stiffness method.
Flexibility method, compatibility.
Equilibrium in stiffness, compatibility in flexibility. Okay, lastly, how do you deal with intermediate loads? In stiffness method, equivalent joint. In flexibility method, no, on the computer, your number of degrees of, this is the Achilles heel of flexibility method. This is what destroys the beauty of the method. You have to borrow the same damn concept from it's a tragedy, because there is no other way you can convert to, that means you have you may have a statically determinate portal frame with a uniformly distributed load on top. You have to pretend that that beam is fixed, make it statically indeterminate and borrow from stiffness method how they calculate the equivalent and then put it here. So that is a problem. So flexibility method is fantastic for trusses and not particularly great when you deal with intermediate loads. Thank you.